Hi, I'm Dr. Rudy Cashman, a neurosurgeon, but I'm going to retire from that position very soon, and I'm going to be a wellness doctor for the Lutheran Health Network. I was happy to accept that position because that's really what I've been doing and teaching and writing about now for probably almost 15 years. I have about 15 books, all about wellness. Tonight's subject, I think, is very interesting because what I'll be discussing today really is the basis of good health. You are what you eat. And I'm going to try to teach you the difference tonight, which I think is critical in our society. What's the biggest point in our eating habits? We're eating the mad, sad, toxic American diet. Our evolutionary bodies aren't used to it. We've only been farming and raising animals for 10,000 years, and our bodies can't adjust to it. So we're seeing tremendous rates of vascular disease and cancer, much bigger than other countries. And it's because we're eating the wrong food. This is what I see all day at the hospital and they're seeing across the country. And I think the real basis of it is that we don't fully understand. I don't think we're teaching it. I don't think the patients are understanding it, but it's out there in the literature. It's the difference between animal and plant protein. I hear constantly, I need my protein. I have to eat animal products. That is totally false. And I will give you the information tonight. Let's, for example, the amount of vascular disease that we're seeing, strokes, heart attacks, the highest cause of death in this country is due to arteriosclerosis. What is causing this arteriosclerosis is the fats and cholesterol and inflammatory factors in animal products. It's not in plant products. With animal products are the building blocks of disease. They're the building blocks of disease. We have 32 million people on statins to try to lower their cholesterol. But yet, in studying these drugs, we find you have to treat about 100 people for one to clinically show improvement. Their blood work may look a little better, but they themselves are not any better. And that's been well studied. We have 133 million people who have at least one chronic illness: vascular disease, strokes, cancer, skin diseases, autoimmune diseases. 90% of the illnesses we're seeing in patients today are from lifestyle choices. So what am I trying to say? You must participate in your health care. I put together about 8 things a person should do to have a healthy lifestyle, to develop a culture of wellness. Number 1 among those 8 is what? You must participate in your health care. We can't just go to the doctor and say, fix it. We ourselves must ask, what could I do to help treat my disease? What could I do to prevent my disease? That's very important. The National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute has said that American males over age 60 who eat the meat diet, they all have vascular disease, every one of them. They said the same thing about women over age 70 who eat a meat diet. Over 70, they all have vascular disease. Incidentally, among women, I think it's critical to keep a normal weight after menopause because the breast cancer rate almost doubles if they're obese. Rarely do I meet a woman who knows it. I can refer you to the literature on Joel Fuhrman's book, Super Immunity, Chapter 5. The references 21, 22, 23 will give you the medical literature proving that obesity results in higher rates of breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. Scientific proof, double-blind studies. I gave you the references if you don't accept what I say. The first symptom in patients who have vascular disease, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, or overweight many times, isn't that a warning of chest pain before the heart attack? In 50 to 60% of them, the first symptom, death. Grab their chest and they die. No warning, something keep important. And the core problem, frankly, is the plaque and inflammation in the arteries. But I'll admit, I didn't know till a few years ago, we have in our body 300,000 miles of blood vessels, the capillaries, from here to the moon, 10 times around the earth. It is these small vessels that are affected by inflammation and arteriosclerosis in diabetics, for example. We must keep these arteries clean. Let's speak a minute about NNT, the numbers needed to treat. 100 people are needed who are taking statins to be treated to make one clinically better. And you're going to be dependent on medication. My cholesterol's up, my triglycerides up, and I've been given a medication, and I'm putting my hat on that. You would be a lot better off to put your hat on proper nutrition, and I will teach that to you. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn of the Cleveland Clinic studied 25 years ago 25 terminal cardiac patients. Him and his wife taught them proper eating, a plant-based diet, in essence, a plant-based diet. Of those 25, I think 23 are alive today. I've met them. Lufrance has developed a relationship with the Cleveland Clinic, and I've reviewed all that literature. Dr. Furman teaches it. Dr. Ballantyne teaches this. Hans Steele and Loma Linda University teaches it. Sugar Solutions by Hans. He, for example, teaches it by Matt Hyman is his name, Sugar Solutions. He teaches it. So all same thing, essentially, a plant-based diet the majority of the time. So plants are the medicine that make you healthy. Doesn't have to be 100%, maybe 80%. I formed a food pyramid myself, and we may show it later in the show. And there's some meat on top, but 80% of the time you should be eating a plant-based diet if you want to be healthy, live to be 100, of sound mind and sound body. And Dean Ornish, years ago, studied vascular disease, proved it with angiograms that he could reverse vascular disease, the cause of strokes and heart attacks and neuropathies, by eating largely a plant-based diet. See, plants don't carry cholesterol and fats and angiogenesis factors which cause cancer growth. Plants carry vitamins, minerals, about 60, 25,000 phytochemicals. The chemicals in plants are used to fighting off disease and viruses and bacteria. So when you eat them, they do the same thing for you. It is their interaction, their symphony, their rainbow, their mosaic of interaction of these 25,000 phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals that lead to good health. That's where good health is located. And we speak a lot about the vitamins and the minerals, but we don't speak about these phytochemicals, the phenols, the carotenes, the quercetins. Not all of them have been discovered yet, but it's their interaction that lead to great health. Former President Bill Clinton, for example, follows the works of the books that he's authored I spoke about. Matter of fact, I met with him once a few years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago, when I gave him one of these books. He follows the books of Hyman and Ornish and Furman and books I've written. And he's lost 20 pounds and is very healthy now. And you hear him speaking about it on TV quite often. So let's get back to the protein in animal meat versus plants. Plants, a properly varied plant diet has all the protein that you need. The proteins are complete. A lady named LaPay, unfortunately, many years ago, 1972, I think it was, published a book. It was called Diet for a Small Planet. And she spoke about that only from meat can you get complete proteins. 10 years later, actually, she wrote a book saying she was dead wrong. But that second book never got any publicity, so people are still confused about it. So where do I get my protein? So let's get to the facts. So in this country, how many people do you see have protein deficiency? Hardly ever, unless they have advanced renal disease or advanced cancer. You just don't, you don't see it. The U.S. Is on an overload of protein. We eat about 150 grams of protein a day. You know how much we need? Maybe 50. And you say, well, I'm very athletic. I run marathons. How would I get my protein? You need about 50 grams of protein a day. And I'll tell you the exact formula in a minute. For every 1,000 calories you eat, generally there's 50 grams of protein. So if you're an athlete running a marathon, guess what? You're going to eat more. You're going to consume 6,000, 7,000 calories if you're running marathons. Remember what I said? 50 grams of protein, but you eat 1,000 calories that you ate. So you're getting all the protein you need. So when athletes take supplements, totally unnecessary. I got it out of the Notre Dame training book and many other books. It is not necessary to take protein supplements, and they can be dangerous to your kidney. If you eat too much protein, your body converts it to fat or is excreted by the liver or the kidney. It can be hard on your liver and kidney, and you will use up the protein you ate that day. You will use it up, or it's fat, or you excrete it. And neither one necessarily is good for you. And the World Health Organization says we should eat about a 10% protein diet. So what does animal protein do to us? Causes osteoporosis. If you eat too much protein, it acidifies the blood, and the blood has to be neutral. And so because it's acidic, then calcium is leached out of the bones to neutralize it, to get to normal pH, and it causes osteoporosis. So animal protein eaters are very prone to get osteoporosis. I saw a patient with it, as a matter of fact, today who had many fractures in her sacrum from osteoporosis, and she was a big-time animal meat eater. Some people think chicken's a health food. It's an animal protein. It has plenty of fat. It has plenty of cancer factors. Chicken, Dr. Furman would say, is like eating a donut. Does it have nutrients, phytochemicals, vitamin, minerals? No, it does not. But to eat an occasional piece once a week without a skin, certainly that's fine. But if you're eating chicken 7 days a week to avoid steak, you're not doing your health very much good. Animal protein also causes increase in triglycerides and cholesterol because there's fat in it. Plants don't have any cholesterol in them, okay? And it's animals who have cholesterol in them. And let's face it, who are the biggest, strongest animals in the world? It's the elephant, the giraffe, the rhinoceros. Are they meat eaters? No, they're plant eaters. And they don't get fat. Now, why don't they get fat? Because the phytochemicals in the food they're eating turns the appetite off. They just eat enough to get full, and they stop. But that's not what we Americans are doing, because we're eating so many animal products, and our appetites are not satisfied because it has no phytochemicals, and we keep on eating and we keep on eating. Also, we eat refined foods with the coverings removed, so we're eating, a lot of sugar. Now, how much protein exactly do we need? 0.8 grams times your ideal body weight in kilograms, okay? So your body weight in kilograms times 0.8 will tell you what your average consumption of proteins should be. So it's not 150. It's, for most people, it's around 50 or 60. And now, you might say, well, Jesus, very little protein in vegetables. You're wrong. You're just wrong. I didn't know that. Let me give you an example. The average vegetable is 25% protein. Yes. If you eat a steak, what percent protein is that? 30%. So So they're just wrong. Leafy green vegetables, like kale, 50% protein. Yes, yes. You wouldn't believe it. A lemon is 15% protein. I didn't know until the other day. That's really great. The average bean is 25 to 30% protein. So an edamame, for example, bean is extremely healthy. Soybean, 40% protein. How about it? Whole grain foods, about 12%. Quinoa, the Indian complex carb they ate on their marches, they called it God's food, about 40%, 20 to 40% protein. And they would carry it in little balls on their marches when they went to war. That was their main food. Fruits, about 5% protein. Yeah. Lemons, about 15%. An orange, 7.4%. A strawberry, 8.3% protein. Yeah. And it's full of phytochemicals. Strawberry, probably 700 phytochemicals, the phenols, the carotenes, the quercetins. Very healthy phytochemicals. And let me tell you something, too. When you take supplements, you isolate a certain chemical, it will never react as well in your body as when you eat the chemical in an orange or in a lemon, because the metabolism of it is very complex. You take it in an isolated form, nowhere near as effective. So supplements, I know a person that takes 100 supplements a day, in the end they'll destroy their body with it. And that person has a lot of numbness in their legs. And you need to take it in the original raw substance, to close to nature as you can get it is a good one. We metabolize in our body about 300 grams of protein a day, but the majority of that is from proteins that are broken down in our body and are recycled. See, a protein is made about 20 amino acids, 8 of which are essential. In other words, you got to take them in. That's essential. It's like essential fatty acids. They're recycled and used over again. And so plant proteins are as complete as animal proteins. LaPay was wrong. If you eat a pure plant protein diet and you're not eating any meat at all, the only thing you could be deficient in is B12. Well, B12 is not really grown in animals. It comes out of the dirt on the ground, out of the dirt on the ground. And most of us, when we eat a salad, for example, there's still a little bit of dirt on it. We store B12 in our liver for 2 to 5 years. So to be B12 deficient, extremely rare. But that's one supplement that might go along with. We need about 2.5 mcgs of B12. So take it in a vitamin. If you eat fortified oatmeal, you get it there, for example. But that's one maybe keep an eye on. So the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics in 1988, this is very important, and when you listen to this, said plant protein can meet the protein requirements when a variety of plant foods are consumed in children and adults. So to eat nothing but plants, for example, which I'm not suggesting, I just say 80-90% of the time, unless you have an advanced disease, you can meet all the nutritional requirements. And if you eat this way, you're going to live to be 100. You're going to have great muscular development. You're going to have no fat on your body. You're going to very rare for you to pick up any illnesses. That's the big advantage of a plant-based diet. So if you're type 2 diabetic or you got vascular disease, don't just accept a pill. Please, please switch the way you eat. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks. You'll get over the taste of fat. I myself lost the taste of fat. If I ate a hamburger, I would get diarrhea. Yesterday, stopping at a fast food restaurant to get their coffee, and not to eat their food because I like their coffee there. I saw this mother and her 2 little children ordering these big old hamburgers, French fries, and then she said, "Do you want some chicken McNuggets?" which have 39 ingredients in them. To me, at least to me, it's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. That's child abuse. That's child abuse. Abusing your child. Am I mad at the mother? No. She doesn't know better. It's not taught. It's not taught in the schools. Her family didn't teach her that. So it's too bad. The kids are, vascular disease begins at age 2. Yes, it's been proven. In the Begalusa study in New Orleans, 40 years, they studied little children that died of accidents or disease or had cancer, etc. And they found that kids who were eating the wrong food were starting to get yellow streaks in their arteries at age 2, 3, 4. Half the teenagers in our country, thin or obese, have an elevated cholesterol and triglycerides. So just to check the blood work of just a child that's obese is wrong. Check it on every child once a year, please. Because that heart attack at age 35, when you hear about these athletes dying of a heart attack, that didn't begin at age 30. It began at age 4, 5, and 6 during the teenage years because the families were feeding the wrong food or they were eating the wrong food. I see a whole families destroyed by this way of eating. I had a patient the other day. She says, well, it's in our genes. No, it's a reaction to your genes. Our genetic structure doesn't change hardly at all, maybe 0.002% every 20,000 years. So it's very hard for our body to change. But we have had tremendous change in what we're eating. And our evolutionary bodies are revolting against the horrible food that we're eating. It is not hard to change. I'm just asking you to eat more of a plant-based diet, and maybe if you have no advanced disease, no more than 20% meat products. But if you get advanced, if you had advanced vascular disease and you've had coronary bypass and all these things, you got to be 100% this way. You may not live very long. But Dr. Esselstyn proved that the most advanced vascular cases, he can start reverse the disease, proved it with angiograms, and Dr. Esselstyn from the Cleveland Clinic will say he finds evidence of disease reversal in 3 weeks. Isn't that wonderful news? But you can't just sit at home swallowing pills. You got to exercise the best that you can, and you got to change the way you eat. You may need to take some medication. I would say 0 medication, but I said at least consider the effects that the way of eating may have on what you eat. And so what's the mother of protein then? Plants. Plants are full of protein. So a steak, for example, a 6-ounce steak has 38 grams of protein, okay? Now we need 50 a day. That's pretty darn good. But 16 grams of fat, saturated fat. The thing that's going to inflame, cause diabetes, your arteries and vessels, your brain, increase the stroke rate. A cup of lentils, for example, is 18 grams of protein, pretty darn good. Only 1 gram of fat, okay? And it's probably unsaturated fat mainly. And so to hang your hat on vitamin B12, and I need to eat my meat products, like I heard someone say the other day, it's not true. It's just plain true. We have to penetrate, but the lobbying of the farm associations, the pharmacy associations, they're the ones passing out the money to the Congress, and so they keep on passing laws that don't support that. The research money to study effects of plant diet on your health is not supported by NIH. Dr. Furman goes around begging for money. I contributed to it recently. John Mackey from Whole Foods contributed money to it. We're sitting on the same table. And I did notice in the paper today, Whole Foods stock split and doubled in price because they're selling so much more of the healthy food. See, in Whole Food markets today, which are many in this country, unfortunately don't have any Fort Wayne, but there's one in Elkhart now, they label the food. Like broccoli will have 1,000 points, white bread will have 10 points. They put it right on it, called Andes scores, Aggregate Nutrient Density Index of Dr. Furman. They use it, they label the food to help teach you what nutrient food is. It's about nutrients. It's the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals, those are the nutrients. They label the food so that you, the consumer, could improve your health. John Mackey of Whole Foods, thank you. And he He wrote a great book recently also called Wellness Capitalism, a very good book to read. I'm reading it. And what he's saying is, you can run a corporation, but you can actually try to help the people while you're doing it, while you're making some money. And he's sure making it because that stock just had a stock split because it went to 100. Now it's 50. So very important. So we already spoke about vitamin B12. You might want to take a little bit of a supplement, but as you get older and seniors, if they think they're going to get their B12 from meat, the protein B12 decouples in seniors, and they'll get B12 deficiency if they're dependent on meat for their B12. And so plants are also iron strong. Let's talk about some minerals. Are iron strong, and which are important. Iron's important for your blood and for your chemical reactions, and you can get plenty of iron from plants. You hear people say, well, I need to drink my milk because the milk industry has promoted this. They did the lobbying in schools. That's how they teach it, that you need to drink your milk. Dead wrong. We don't need to drink milk after age 2. Milk before age 2, very important. Mother's milk for 2 years is extremely important to build the best brain because of omega-3 essential fats. Essential means you got to take it in. Mother's milk is absolutely the healthiest, and breastfeeding a child till full age 2, which not many mothers do, unfortunately, leads to the biggest brain in a child. But after that, you don't need to drink milk. It has casein in it. Casein causes cancer, and casein increases the type 1 diabetic rate, increased allergies, increased asthma. My friend Dr. Arula, a pediatrician, tells me that the families that he convinces not to give animal milk. I mean, it's good to plant milk's fine. Give animal milk to children. Those children don't seem to get sick. He said his waiting room is getting more empty because they're feeding the children less fast food, less milk products. And him and I have given some courses and proper nutrition eating to children. He'll write on a prescription. He'll say, Rudy and Gary's cooking class. I must say we're proud of that. Great pediatrician. I highly recommend him. You will hear about proper eating if you go see Dr. Varula. I recommend him highly. And so prevention is the king of health. We don't want to just treat the iceberg, the problem above. The next revolution in healthcare will be that the patient will participate in his health care. Remember I spoke about the 8 wheels and spokes of the culture of health I'm creating through the Lutheran Health Network? That's spoke number 1. You must participate in your health care. You have to become educated by your provider in the school system, read your own books, look on the internet, or at least ask the person taking care of you, what can I do to get underneath and prevent and cure my disease? Just giving you a pill doesn't cure anything. But to underneath and find out what would my participation do to help prevent this or stop this from progressing. That you have to be fully informed about. Your provider, I think, is obligated to teach it to you. That's why I get DVDs, books, audiobooks available, Amazon, bookstores, to teaching. It's about teaching. And I think audiobooks especially good. You can play in your car while you're driving, and listen to them. So he who cures a disease may be skillful, or let's say treats the disease is skillful, but the person that prevents it is the best and safest physician. He's going to save you a lot of money, probably live to be 100, like Dean Ornish is doing, like Esselstyn is doing, like Furman is doing, like Ballantyne, Bernard is doing, Hans Steele and Loma Linda University. They're doing it all. And their books I've summarized in my books. So our leading causes of death really are heart disease, cancer, strokes, But I tell you, number 3 or 4, 100,000 deaths a year from physician prescriptions. Prescriptions that were correctly written and properly taken. Side effects and interactions. I'm not speaking about the 18,000 deaths we have from physician narcotic prescriptions, which is shameful in itself. Narcotic prescriptions, yes, we have 18,000 deaths last year, 70 in this county for narcotic prescriptions. So don't take it unless you had cancer or a broken bone or something. And don't just take it because you got a headache or neck pain. That's not a proper thing to take a narcotic for. And a lot of people do. So another one today was an addict. She was a relative of a patient I operated on. She was addicted to the medications. Young lady, pretty young lady, 30 milligrams of morphine 3 times a day. It was sad. I was a relative I've seen after the patient I operated on. Very sad. But medications, their interactions and their side effects are huge. So doctor, can I help my disease or cure my disease? If they want to hand you that statin or this narcotic medication, could I try other things first? Give me 3 months to get rid of my disease by practicing wellness. Give it a shot. Give it a shot because these things have side effects. And so we must participate. Like dementia and Alzheimer's disease, 70,000 deaths supposedly from Alzheimer's disease. I don't think all these cases are Alzheimer's disease. I think a lot of them are just dementia, especially type 2 diabetics, much higher rate of having dementia. Now, why is that? Because the protein in the blood hooks to the sugars in the blood called AGEs, and they deposit in the brain cells and destroy their function. So type 2 diabetics, much higher rate of dementia. Doctors may call it Alzheimer's disease. That's not Alzheimer's disease. That's dementia of disease and aging. Alzheimer's disease is around, but not as common as is diagnosed today. Because your grandpa's missing a few words, don't say you get Alzheimer's disease. That's natural at age 85 to be missing a few words. And that's a natural process. Don't put a name on it. Give them a hug. Take them out to a movie. Take a walk. And I think we overdiagnose this disease by a long shot. That our type 2 diabetic rate, type 2 now is where you have too much insulin secreted. Type 1, where you have the pancreas dies. And type 2 diabetic, though, can become type 1 because the pancreas gets sick and tired of secreting so much insulin, but trying to get sugar into the cell. So type 2 turns to type 1. Now they need insulin. When that happens, things are getting worse. So type 2 diabetes, it's largely caused by obesity. Metabolic syndrome, for example, we have an elevated cholesterol and low HDL and high triglycerides and high cholesterol. It's called metabolic syndrome. 80 million Americans have metabolic syndrome. 60 million Americans are pre-diabetic. In other words, they're running a high blood sugar. They're running a high insulin. The main thing is they're running a high insulin, the pre-diabetic, high insulin, but the blood sugar is normal. It takes a lot of insulin to push the sugar into the cell. We have 70 trillion cells, okay? It's insulin's job to take sugar and push it in the cell. We have these receptors on the surface. But in pre-diabetes, we have a very high insulin level pushing the sugar in for our metabolism, for our energy, okay? So if we run just a blood sugar test, oh, your blood sugar is normal, and you weigh 220 pounds and your blood pressure is elevated, you're just fine. You're not fine. Odds are you got pre-diabetes. The correct test would have been fasting 8 hours, swallow 75 grams of sugar, then check the serum insulin and the blood sugar in 1 hour and 2 hours. That's the correct test. Read Matt Hyman's book, Sugar Solutions. He has it in there. He's right. That'll catch the pre-diabetic. We have 70 million people walking around in the pre-diabetic state, 60% of whom will grab the chest, no symptoms, and die of a heart attack. So pre-diagnosis is critical. What could be a hint to you? You got elevated, all type 2 diabetics have elevated blood pressure. If you're overweight, obese, it may only be 10 points, 10 pounds, but a majority are much more than that. But there are even a few thin people who have type 2 diabetes. That was shown again recently, as I read in the New York Times 2 Sundays ago, We're in Vietnam. They're picking up a great number of type 2 diabetics now. South Korea, that's old hat. They have more type 2 diabetes than we have because they eat 40% of the sad, mad, toxic American diet. Let's say about 30% or 40% of white rice, which it did for years. Now it's 70% bad food. Obesity is exploding. Type 2 diabetes is exploding. Dr. Furman's gone over there to teach the doctors how to teach the patient how to eat right. He was paid to do that, so I know this for a fact. In Vietnam now, they're seeing some skinny people with type 2 diabetes, and the reason is that people came from the country, now in the city, they're sitting there on their computers, they're not moving, watching television, and they're developing insulin resistance. The fats are increasing in the blood. See, insulin resistance is the cause of diabetes because the insulin is resistant to put the sugar into the cell because these receptors are full of fat. They can't open the door into the cell. We need sugar and oxygen to produce ATP, our energy molecule, okay? Sugar and oxygen, ATP for energy, but it can't get in there because these receptors are sticky from elevated triglycerides and fat. That's the cause of diabetes. Really, do I meet a type 2 diabetic who can tell me the cause of it? Number one is generally 90% of them don't know it's curable by getting to normal weight. And I like to make this a huge focus in this area. Yes, type 2 diabetes is curable 90% of the time by getting to a normal weight. Wow. Franklin House been running a clinic like that in Oklahoma for 32 years. Read his book, Diabetic Miracles, Franklin House. He has a website, diabetesmiracles.com. On page 56, the way of eating he recommends, exactly what I recommend, exactly what I'm talking about. These other authors recommend the same way. The only other thing he has in there, it wasn't the same as me. He's talking about coffee. Don't drink coffee. I don't agree with that. And maybe because I drink coffee. I don't know. But I don't think that's critical. The other stuff we're talking about is critical. The majority of patients with type 2 diabetes have elevated blood pressure. So we doubled the type 2 diabetic rate from 1980 to 2010. We're going to probably double it again. It's increasing every year. Our healthcare system can't afford it. The amount of people having heart attacks and strokes and dementia is increasing every year. Our hospitals are full of these people. We're looking at people 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds. And is it so hard to reverse? No, I'm not asking you to fly to the moon. All I'm asking you is 3 meals a day, eat a plant-based diet 80% of the time. That way it's going to fall off you. You're going to feel better if you can exercise a little bit. And then I would say, if you say, I'm too sick to exercise, well, I say to you, dance in place. I said that to a lady a few years ago. She took it seriously and weighed 280 pounds, I think, and read my book, Secret of the Non-Diet, which is on Amazon. She read that to eat the right food. That's before I came out with my Reversing Type 2 Diabetes book, which is also on Amazon. And you know, she took up seriously about the dancing thing. She ended up in about 2 years, she became the Ohio State Adult Dancing Champion. Now she's the main nurse for one of the diabetic doctors, and she looks beautiful. Beautiful. Total change just from eating right. If you want to see another person that lost a good 100 pounds, it's Emily. She lives in town here. She works for Dr. Furman, my friend Dr. Furman. If you look at joelfurman.com testimonials, you'll see a picture before and after. She looks like Elizabeth Taylor now. That's what proper eating can do for you. And return your health, and you can become a handsome-looking guy, a beautiful woman. I've seen it. I've proven it. So it's not just in your genes. Don't just say, well, our whole family's overweight because it's in our genes. No, it's the reaction of your genetic structure to what you eat. That is what's causing the trouble. There may be a bit of a genetic tendency, but believe me, I lived in Germany in the Second World War, and I saw people from the concentration camps. There wasn't anybody overweight there. So it ain't just your genes. It's the food you're eating. And so that's great news, okay? The ideal diet then is a plant-based diet. And I didn't call it vegan or vegetarian, no big name. Nutrient-dense way of eating, not even a diet, way of eating. Eat all you want. I eat piles of food, piles. Never gain weight from it. And that's just not just me, it's the nature of it. Full of fiber, full of nutrients. They turn my appetite off. And you have to keep snacks like that at home because we all want a snack. Believe me, I got the psychological eating problems like everybody else. But what do I eat? An apple, a banana, a strawberry, and drink some water every day. I think is important too. I don't drink enough water. I think it's important. Rather drink eight glasses of water, 8 ounces a day. Very healthy. So we want to eat foods that are whole foods. And incidentally, Colin Campbell, who wrote the China study, where he studied different cities in China and how they ate and related this to their diseases, came out with another book called Whole, W-H-O-L-E. Very good book to read. This is exactly what he's talking about. If any found Chinese cities, plant eaters, and they really got cancer. They really got autoimmune diseases. Diabetes was almost unknown. Heart attacks and strokes are unknown. They go to the city where they're eating fatty foods. The usual American, sad, toxic American diet, they get sick just like the rest of us. So he really proved it. So he promotes whole food, plant-based diet. The whole food, eat the whole thing. Don't divide it as component parts. And if you eat organic, it's better than inorganic, but don't hang your hat just on eat only organic. That's important to avoid some of the chemicals. But the main thing, base it on plants, and don't eat them in the original state. When you cook things, it's like a frozen food. Most of the time, the frozen food still has all the nutrients and phytochemicals in it. Warm it up a little bit and eat it. If you're going to cook it, you will destroy a lot of the phytochemicals. So we don't like frying and necessarily cook. But a lot of your food, say cook half and eat the other part raw to get those phytochemicals that lead to good health. I think the best diet, frankly, is 80% whole grain, whole foods that have the coverings on them. They're not stripped, like white rice, not as good as whole rice. Although even whole rice is high in the glycemic index, while beans are quite low. They're about a 30. They're not going to raise. And you need to know what the glycemic index is, which is how fast your blood sugar raises to the food that you eat. So it's 0 to 100. White bread, be 100. A bean will be 30. Fruits on the average about 35. So you want to try to eat 50 or under the glycemic index. So we want whole food, plant-based diet. Leads to great health. And we have to be concerned about the environment a little bit. I mean, if you let meat products, you will help destroy our environment because they're feeding corn. I mean, you know what they do to an average cattle to put it on your plate, okay? They raise it 6 months on grass. They're used to eating that. Then about a few months, they put them in a cage and a few of them together to teach them how to teach them to eat corn. Corn that has been grown very fast with petroleum products, with and insecticides applied to it, and then hormones applied to the food to fatten up the beef. Then the beef is put in a cage for 150 days, can't move. It's right in there, and their excrements are not removed. It's too expensive. The flies come in, so then they put antibiotics in there. I mean, that's what you eat. This is what you're eating. And by 150 days, most beef is sick. 25% have liver abscesses, and this is what you're going to eat, okay? And then I don't want to tell you what happens in the slaughterhouse, and if you read those books, but that's not the reason I don't want you to eat that. I want you to, I don't want you to eat beef because of all the cholesterol and fat and cancer factors and IGF-1, which is a cancer growth factor that are in meat products. That's the reason. I'm not even mentioning the cruelty to chickens or turkeys or I'm not even going to bring that up any further, but if you can't find a reason to quit, you might look into that. So how much of things do we need to eat? How much of these phytochemicals? Let your body decide. As long as you're eating a combination of these vegetables, let your body decide. The body knows what it needs. It will decide how much C or how much B or how much E or how much K it needs through its cellular structure. In this way of eating, because results in great immunity. Dr. Furman, who wrote this book, Super Immunity, my friend, he this is the very diet he recommends to avoid cancer, autoimmune diseases. So you're going to be very healthy when you eat this way. And I mean, the American diet is a sad diet: fat, salt, and sugar. You see it every day. You go to a restaurant, you see people. Look at the size. Look at what they're eating. This doesn't take you don't have to be. Just look. You can see what matches up. So humans are herbivores by their nature. Their gut is 22 feet long, they're plant eaters. You take the lion; he's got a 4-foot gut. He has a lot of acid in his stomach. His teeth, small canines, enlarged in sizes. He just tears the meat apart, puts it in the stomach, and the acids destroy it, and then it's got to be absorbed in 4 feet. But you notice they don't live very long. Lions don't live very long, and tigers don't live very long, versus the herbivores. So we are made to be herbivores, although we certainly eat animals in the past when we had to. So the way our jaws are constructed, the way our teeth are constructed, the way the enzymes secreted in our gut is consistent with us being herbivores, not to be carnivores. And some are omnivore. You know, we some are both. Two interesting books to read, incidentally, is The Omnivore's Dilemma by Fallon, and The Mad Cowboy is another good book. These are great books to read if you want to read a little more about how we treat animals and how we interfere with the environment. There's a tremendous amount of environmental destruction by the way that we eat. The methane put out by cattle and the CO2 by cattle is 10% of global warming at least. In the chemicals we put in the earth that go into our water systems and end up in the Gulf, it's destroying our environment. 98% of Canada is chemically farmed. Totally to my surprise, and the only reason that I know, and the plane was delayed in Fort Wayne, and there was this lady sitting next to me. We were on 2 hours in the tarmac, so I talked to her, what do you do? And I think God put her there, because she says, I sell chemicals to all the farmers for Cargill in Canada. I think God did that to me. And so we had a great discussion. I was surrounded by former patients at the plane, and they all kept quiet. They knew where I was coming from. We quizzed the heck out of her. She thought all these chemicals went down her foot, and that's it. I mean, they end up in the rivers and in the Gulf, destroying our environment. So meat eaters are helping destroy our environment. There's no question about it. That's all over the books. That's all over the books. The New York Times ran a story that the physician committee responsible for medicine tried to ask the U.S. Drug Association to pass some laws or not support anymore just animal research versus plant research, and they were out-lobbied. The meat eaters formed an association, the Center of Consumers Freedom, and they out-lobbied them, paid more money. So the physician group was really trying to promote healthy eating, but they were out-lobbied by the money. The government supports the promotion of eating bad food. No question about it. NIH is guilty of it. They don't support research of plant eating. A very bad mistake. We pay the taxes to pay them, but it's because the Cattle Association out-lobby us. And 19,000 beef are slaughtered per day, incidentally. And we have to be concerned about global warming, which is partly due how we eat. That really produces a great deal of global warming because of CO2 and methane. Methane is more difficult, is more destructive to the environment. Methane ends up in the universe and stays there for 100 years. CO2 generally destroys itself in about 10. You know, you hear about the Mediterranean diet. Oh, it's a great way of eating, right? Well, it's been studied in great deal. The Mediterranean diet was a good way of eating after the Second World War, where they didn't have meat products, and the people were starving, and they lived longer. That was in Holland. They studied there was hardly any heart disease, vascular disease, or stroke because they're living off the land. They were living off the land, and the land itself will produce about 9 times as much calories as if you have beef there. It takes 9 times as much energy consumption to raise beef than if you ate the plants themselves. So we want to help the nutrition of the world. We would support plant growth instead of putting cattle out there, because it takes almost 9 bushels of corn for a pound of beef. It's very energy destructive. And that's, when you study those Mediterranean countries in Spain, you find high obesity rates. And the only reason that the diet might work a little bit, because the people work like anything. They eat a lot of fruit. And for other things, no one's really studied those countries. They're becoming quite obese. So the Mediterranean diet is a bit of a phony. It's about promotion. It's about promotion. What Dr. Colin Campbell would say, we have reductionist thinking in our studying of nutrition. In other words, we try to, NIH and the government will only support research when you bring it down to one little chemical. Well, the darn thing is that nutrition is about vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. Their interaction, there are 25,000 chemicals interacting. You study one of those chemicals alone will not tell you very much. It'll identify that chemical, but that's not the answer to nutrition. The answer is their interaction, their mosaic of interaction. So Dr. Campbell would call this reductionist thinking. That's like Descartes in 1635, disconnected the head from the body, gave it to the church and the body to science. And we've been practicing like that ever since. We don't think this thing affects this thing. And it's slowly changing. But we're still thinking the old Descartes reductionist theory. Vitamin C isolated will be nowhere near as effective as you were to eat an orange and get it that way, along with the peel and the fiber and the interaction makes it a lot more effective. So we have a great deal of reductionist thinking going on in research in this country. They literally will barely support a plant-based diet research. The government needs to throw money at it, because that's where they can save a tremendous amount in healthcare, because 90% of the illnesses that we look at today are nutrition-based. Vascular disease, heart disease, strokes, it's a diet disease. And that's the first thing needs to be pushed. Extremely important. I can't emphasize it enough. Type 2 diabetes is a diet disease. It's a diet disease. 1 out of 3 people I look at in my practice of neurosurgery was type 2 diabetics. That's why I took an interest in writing about it, became informed about it. And it's not hard. I mean, this doesn't take a degree in physics. When you say plant diet most of the time leads to good health with a little bit of exercise. Is that complex? No. Even I can understand it. And what's metabolism? That's the sum total of all the chemical reactions in the body that sustain life. You hear the word instinct definition. We can speak a minute about, you hear about free radicals, oxidants and antioxidants. Disease is really based on free radicals. When you're eating so much food, you're eating a lot of fat, a lot of sugar, that affects the number of chemical reactions in your body, and you develop a electron will jump out of an orbit of an atom, and that's called a free radical. We need some of those, but if you're producing too many of those, you have to, because they are the ones that result in disease and vascular disease. Remember, insulin helps paint your arteries, okay? So we need antioxidants, which destroy these free radicals. Phytochemicals are full of antioxidants. Animal meats are full of oxidants, not antioxidants. They cause the rusting. It's like frying food, for example, will cause the rusting. So phytochemicals are antioxidant chemicals. So they are natural antioxidants. Okay, and let's talk about supplements for a minute. I mean, some supplements we eat, I think, take some vitamin D. I think maybe some fish oil, or you take it as flaxseed, which I think is even healthier, and little calcium perhaps, although you can get all the calcium you want off of plant products, but take a supplement if you need. We have osteoporosis, maybe a multivitamin. But remember what I said? When you're taking supplements, you're taking a singular substance. And it'd be a lot better to find out what the substance that you want, where it is in the food chain, and eat it that way, because of the chemical interaction. It will be a lot more fancy. And let's speak a minute about the cost. Oh, it's too expensive. We don't have this kind of stores around here. But let me tell you, if you count calorie per dollar, okay, calories per dollar. So you look at it that way, plants clearly win the prize. They are a lot more healthy, a lot cheaper. They're a lot cheaper. Dr. Ruler proved it to me. He took me into supermarkets. We shopped the outside of it, and you look at frozen food. Incidentally, if you bread's okay, yeah, whole grain bread's okay. Ezekiel bread, like Ezekiel in the Bible, is healthy. It's made from sprouts, tastes very good. I love it. I like Ezekiel bread. It's very good toast. But you can't be eating 8 pieces of white bread. That's nothing but sugar. So eating plant foods is actually thrifty. You may need to buy in bulk, and you got to learn to make soups. So I think we covered this subject a little bit, and hopefully convince you to switch more to a plant food diet. We've reviewed it. We're trying to, what am I trying to do? Create a culture. I'm trying to create a culture of wellness, which takes, you must participate, exercise, proper nutrition, education, and you have to check your blood factors. You must learn to mind, body, spirit connection. It's the interaction of all these actions result in a culture of good health. You don't want heart disease, vascular disease, autoimmune disease, dementia. If you eat the plant diet, say 80-90% of the time, and if you have advanced disease, maybe 100% of the time, you're going to be very healthy. You must learn to avoid meat products. Your taste buds, incidentally, will change. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight. We're going to have a lot more shows on this public access TV, and there'll be some free lectures at Lutheran Hospital that'll be given monthly, at least 2 a month. You're welcome to come to those. Look at the Lutheran Hospital website. You'll see us. I must say, it's been my pleasure this evening, and I hope you follow what we're trying to do at the Lutheran Hospital. And myself, I've done it for years, and our books and DVDs you can read and get from Amazon and bookstores. And we're trying to educate you because we love you. There's very little profit in this for us, but we love you. That's why we do it. And I personally have found, once a patient figures out that I really care about them, which I do, many of them change. Providers might say, the patient doesn't want to change. I totally disagree. If the provider, nurse, practitioner, whatever, PA, doctor, muscles it, shows that the patient they love, they will change. Namaste. I love you all. Thank you very much for allowing me to give this talk to you tonight. And join us in some of our activities, lectures, read some other stuff, and maybe look me up, and have a great evening. Thank you very much.